Um, I need some kind of confirmation that everybody's okay this morning. So I'm looking around the room and it's the usual Zoom stare. So, either a thumbs up or a nod of the head or a smile or something just to let me know that you're okay today and that you're feeling good. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little tired today. I'm a little overwhelmed in a good way. But I feel good. I'm glad we're doing this conversation. We missed you all last week. Of course, I know you understand why we thought it was best to wait a week to do this. So, folks are still coming in. So, those of you who are joining, if you could just pop into the chat your area of that you're most comfortable in, elementary, middle, high school, collegiate. Uh, and then community could be sacred or secular, and then I'll work on propagating those groups for our breakouts in a little bit here. I'd like to open with the song. Is that okay? We're not going to hear each other, but I think it'd be cool to sing together. And the song that I've chosen is kind of my new anthem these days. Andrea Ramsey is a good friend, and she shared a couple of songs in the Justice Choir songbook. And this one in particular is one that really resonates with me right now because we all have the agency and the ability to lift our voices for good. So I could go to my piano, but I'm not going to move over there. We're just going to go a cappella and you're just going to have to bear with my voice. We're all readers in this room. So just join in with me here. And I don't have perfect pitch, so you're going to have to take my key today. When I lift my voice, let it be in song, a defiant note in the face of wrong. I won't stand alone, we'll stand side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. I encourage you to add a little body percussion or a clap. Let's do the second verse. Here we go. When I lift my voice, let it be for good. Let me care as much as I know I should. I won't stand alone, we'll stand side by side, 'cause we know that love is always justified. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. You do the refrain one more time and harmonize with me where we are. Let's sing a little duet. Here we go. When they try to divide us, it will only unite us. I lift my voice. We all do that every day. I mean, that's why we got into this thing, is to lift our voices for good. I thought we are a singing community and we're talking about how we can sing again. I realized we didn't sing in the first session. So I wanted to rectify that wrong and apologize and make sure we sing in each and every session. So with that being our framework, I'm going to say one more time because I just let about 7 people into the room. So sorry for being a broken record. If you've just joined us, welcome. We ask that you put into the chat your area of expertise: elementary, middle, high school, collegiate, and then community, sacred or secular. And I'm going to break us out into groups in just a moment. But I'd like to welcome Kristen Chase, who is our advocacy chair, one of our advocacy chairs for MMEA, to greet us and to talk with us for 10, 15 minutes or so about advocacy, ways that we can, each and every one of us can advocate for our programs, for singing. She's going to focus primarily on schools, but I know this message is something that all of us can adapt and transfer to our situation. So Kristen, I see you now. I'm going to put you on the spotlight here while you unmute yourself and just come to us and greet us in your own way.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Chase, and I am one of the 2 new advocacy co-chairs for MMEA. I am a band person by nature, so this is cool for me to get to see what the choir community is talking about. And in my role as for advocacy for MMEA, I have gone to a couple different choral webinars, and it's been really interesting to see how the choral community has come together in this. Like with instrumental music, we're typically focusing on like, these are the school ensembles and we're working together, and oh, there are community bands, you figure your own thing out, bye. And so it's really cool to see the choral community coming together as a whole and working together on this. That's just a unique dynamic that the other music programs aren't doing. So this is really cool to be a part of this. Advocacy wise, if you are a school music teacher, I would encourage you to make sure you're following MMEA on Facebook, because we have been posting advocacy updates and we'll keep you posted with information as it becomes available to us. Again, this is going to focus mostly on school stuff, but I'll try to make it as broad as possible for everyone. You have to start advocating for your programs now. Whatever program you're in, whether it's a sacred or a secular community group or a church group or a collegiate group or a middle school, elementary, it doesn't matter. You have to start advocating for your programs now, and you have to be proactive about it. Don't assume someone else is doing it for you. We are going to face budget cuts in schools, period. Like, we are going to face cuts. The state has to balance their budget. Unlike the federal budget, which they can borrow money and things, the state can't. The state has to balance their budget. And due to COVID-19, the states are expected to lose 10 to 20% of their revenues. And schools in Minnesota, education makes up about 35% of our state's revenue. Like, that's where our state budget goes to. 35% of that goes to education. So when they're talking about, even on the small end, a 10% deficit, education is going to be impacted. And we know that we are usually some of the first ones to go when those cuts come around. So it's really, really important that you start advocating and preparing for that now. We're recommending that you contact your boosters organizations if you have them. If you don't have a boosters organization, you should reach out to trusted community members or families who you know support your programs. And if you're a school teacher, I recommend that you not do this with your district email. Using your personal email is usually better, because then, we create the illusion that you had nothing to do with this, basically. But you need to start urging people to reach out to administrators, to the people who fund you, to your organizations, so the community has a voice in this and lets these people in charge of things know how much this matters to them. MMEA sent out an email with some templates for emails that you can use, and I can definitely share those with you if you are someone who maybe didn't get that email but would like those templates. I can get your contact information and send those to you to use. As of right now, there aren't any set plans from the Department of Education. They're working on guidelines for the fall. The guidelines they're looking at now are just generic. They're looking at, between at least what I've been privy to, they are looking at, going back to school in person, but with social distancing, a hybrid of distance and in person, and then all distance learning. So they are working on scenarios for that. My principal told me that they are releasing that on July 31st. I heard they might be trying to do that sooner. And my understanding is that when they do release those guidelines, they will have that, this is what school is going to look like in the fall. Here are the guidelines. And then MMEA is actively involved in those guidelines for the music portion of this. So we've got some help in there. Yeah, it's just, you have to advocate for yourselves. That's really, I guess that's the biggest point I can really get across, is that this isn't going to be an easy couple of years. The 21-22 school year is where we're probably going to see most of our cuts. So we kind of have a year to start really preparing for this. I know in my own district, when we contacted our boosters, they were super supportive, and they said, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to write a letter to the editorial? write a letter to the editorial, write a letter to the editor. Yes, please do that. That would be great. So just anything that your community can do for you to start letting the people in charge know that they care about your programs. And as we are looking towards the fall in COVID-19 and, you know, potential cuts moving forward, you need to be prepared with solutions. Like, you need to make yourself your resident expert on how we can have choir in the world of COVID-19. Not should we have choir, how do we make choir work? It's not what should we be doing, it's how are we doing it? That's the message you really need to focus on. Because when your administrators come to you and they say, we don't know how to make choir work, so we're just gonna cut it. And you can say, no, I know how to make choir work. I can do that. That's a thing that I can do. I know how to do it. You just give me the time and I have plans. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, you are working together with your music colleagues throughout your buildings to make sure that you are represented in those meetings with administration. I would recommend someone from every building's music department should be contacting your principal regularly and saying, hey, remember me, the music department? I have ideas and I am an expert at this and I know how to teach music in COVID-19. And can I please have a seat at the table for those conversations? That's going to be really, really important, because we all know what it's like when non-music people try to plan things for music teachers. It's just going to work a lot better if you have those solutions yourself, and then you are solving the problems that administrators are going to have. You need to be able to solve those. The MMEA website has resources up in the advocacy section. And I know that ACDA and NATS, I know the choral community has been putting out resources as they're available there as well. Yeah. You just be more proactive than you think you should. Do more than you think you should. And I think that's the best advice I have and what we can do.
Does anyone have any questions for Kristen that you'd like to ask? If so, you can either put it in the chat or you can actually unmute yourself and just ask out loud.
Hi, Kristen, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I had to cut my video. This is Dorothy Sandus. I'm up here in Hibbing in northern Minnesota, and I'm a junior high choir director. And I want to thank you for your words today and your earlier postings that I've seen on MMEA about this. But I had to cut my camera because our daughter's on a Zoom piano lesson right now. So hopefully that'll be only about 15 more minutes. But I guess on your last posting in MMEA, and you were talking about band and how band might be more doable with social distancing, and because the droplets are mostly contained in the instrument and all that. And then when, right, we were talking about choir is in a particularly precarious place right now. And I think, right, all of us are, and especially as teachers, it's scary, because typically in my junior high choirs, my 7th grade choirs, I have 60 to 70 students. And I'm concerned about how our administration is going to handle this. I'm not new to teaching, but I'm relatively new to this district. And so I'm not tenured yet. So I, want to tread lightly, but at the same time, I, like all of us here, I think, want to get ahead of what might be coming. So I guess, have you heard anything? I mean, I've heard things about, like, we're going to have, if we get classes down or choirs down to 15 students, or that's fine. I mean, I think we can make that work. I guess, what else are you hearing with regard to logistics for actual, classroom teaching for choir? Thank you.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't heard a ton of specific logistics from anyone really. I saw the May 5th NATS webinar with Dr. Lucinda Halstead, who's the one who said that singing even with a mask isn't safe. I did actually just read a conflicting study from Germany last night that actually contradicts that a little bit, but I think that study is not as widely reviewed as other studies might be. But I do know that we have 2 studies going on in the United States right now that are more thoroughly studying the aerosols to really see how problematic they are. And they are they are making sure that they are differentiating between male and female voices and different age groups and things like that. So I am hopeful that those studies are going to yield some really conclusive results, and maybe even some like, hey, it turns out this isn't as bad as we thought it was. That's what I'm hoping for, but I don't know what that will yield. I know that those studies, when they are released, they are planning to release some real life practical solutions as well. Unfortunately, we're looking at, I think one of the studies, they're expecting some preliminary results at the end of June and early July, and then the other one isn't going to be until mid or late July. But those studies are planning to actually offer some solutions as part of their findings. I would encourage you, if you are feeling, because I'm sure that, Dorothy, you're not the only one in that boat of being maybe a newer teacher to the district who maybe doesn't feel comfortable stepping out. And this is where your colleagues can be really, really helpful. I would bond together as a music department. Like in my building, I am the one who's going to work with the principal because I am the most senior music department member in my building. And then we have another person who's going to be working on the district level if there's anything there. But every building in my district has someone who's the point person. And it doesn't have to be you. If you don't feel comfortable being that person with your administration, you can ask, like, talk to your band, your choir, your general music teachers, ask them if they can be that voice, and just make sure they know where you're at with your thoughts. But I would start exploring any and all possible solutions, because we don't have anything yet. We don't know what's happening. And so I know that some states, and I don't know if we're one of them, I know some states are looking at, like, we can't have PE. What is PE gonna look like? And, you know, from an elective teacher standpoint, I'm like, come on, PE teachers, I hope you're coming up with something, because we want you guys in there. But also there's a part of me that's like, if they're not having PE, if PE looks different, are they still using the gyms? And if the gyms aren't being used for PE, could they be used for that choir class? So I think, and the reality is, if we're back to school with social distancing and we're actually doing the social distancing right, I personally can't fathom how that works, because we'd have to double the size of every building, and we just can't do that. So every class is going to be in that same boat, no matter what, of how to fit people in the room. Every single teacher in your building is in that boat. And the only thing you can do is try to, if it were just you, if you were working on your problems, how could you solve them? And that's really the best angle I think you can take is, okay, I need to worry about choir. Here's how I handle choir. And then your administrators, it's their job to make sure they're mitigating all those different things and keeping all of them in mind. I don't know, I don't think that's necessarily the answer you were hoping for, but I hope that that's helpful.
Thank you for that, Kristen. It's interesting that you talked about the studies that are coming, and I'm sorry, my camera's off. I'm still placing people in here. And yes, that information is coming. And what we're going to do in just a moment for everyone in the room is we're going to plan for 3 scenarios. We're going to spend time talking with each other about what possibly could happen. What scenarios could we put in place so that we are prepared to advocate for our programs, to say that we are ready to teach and lead and hear our proposals. So Kristen, thank you again. Let's show her a round of applause, everybody, from where we are, for your leadership. Thanks for jumping into the choral community. You are always welcome here, friend. I'm going to share my screen with you all. I've got a few people that still need to be placed, but I will get you guys placed right after I do this because I want to get these rooms going so we can get our conversation going here. So first of all, if I can find my screen that I want to share, this will work smoothly. There it is. Okay, great. You may see a couple things that you don't need to see at first, but eventually you'll see what I want you to see. There it is. So this is the beginning of the document that you are all going to have access to in a moment. And this is what we're going to use for our conversation. These three scenarios, the scenario planning, if you will, for choirs and the classroom singing experiences. It's an unknown future. I don't have to talk about that. The planning team met and talked about just three scenarios. We could break it down into 4 or 5, but what would face-to-face instruction look like? Best case scenario. And we're thinking, you know, whether you're in school, whether you're in church, worship community, taking it for your context. What would hybrid contact look like, where we are face-to-face sometimes, but maybe we have to have a distance or remote component? It could be that we start face-to-face and then we're forced to move back into distance contact, or it could be that we're using both face-to-face and distance in tandem as a strategy to support physical distancing measures. And this is also, what if we can meet in person but we cannot sing together? That could be a part of that second hybrid platform there. And then the third scenario is the one that none of us really want, but we need to be thinking about it, is what if we are forced to just go back to a remote distance scenario? And the purpose of the conversation is, can we promote singing and making music in all three scenarios? That's what we want to leave this meeting with, ideas of how we can sing together in all three scenarios and still keep singing happening. For the purpose of this conversation, we're just going to focus on the rehearsal element. So there are some basic assumptions that I'm just going to lay out here. You don't have to agree with them, but just to let you know, let's assume that all of these precautions are in place. We've determined what it takes to attend rehearsal. Everyone's using some kind of form of protection. Everyone's spaced out circumambiently greater than 6 feet, whatever that number is you want to say. The rehearsal length has already been addressed so that there's plenty of transition time between groups. Doors are going to be open so no one's touching things. We have a plan for backpacks and belongings, and we have wipes. So you don't have to talk about those things in the conversation. That just saves us a little time. And then we can discuss performances at a future gathering if you want to, and talk specifically about what does performing and programming look like. I think that would make the conversation a little tedious today if we try to go that far. We wouldn't get as deep. We would stay surface level. So for now, just assume that any performances will be pre-recorded or live streamed through a digital platform. So what we've created then is this document here, which will put you in these rooms. They're averaging about 10 to 12. The elementary group is larger than I thought it would be. Great to have all the elementary folks here. I'm going to leave you in one room rather than break it into 2. I think 10 to 12 is going to be a fruitful number for conversation. And just walk through these questions and have generative conversation about these scenarios. So you can begin to see some of the things that we're asking you to think about. Some of them will get you into pedagogical considerations that you will want to consider and discuss. And we'll ask for someone to kind of be the note taker for each room, to just kind of keep these notes so that we can then compile this into a document at the end of our time together. So you can see there's the scenario B. Some of the questions are the same at the top, but in the middle, the questions change a little bit to be more specific to that scenario. And then scenario 3 actually only has 2 questions. What do you need to create? What
Philip,
skills do you need? Mm-hmm.
Philip, are you able to push that document out to us so we can be marking stuff on it?
Yep, I'm going to send it out in the chat here in just a second. I've also got it up as a Google Doc where I can then you can all share it, and if you would each group rename it for your group. And then that way and save it, and we'll have 6 or 7 separate Google documents. So I'm going to put this in the chat right now, the Google document version of it. And I'm going to open the rooms, and a few of you are going to still be in the room with me until I can get you placed, and it'll take me just a second to do that, to get you all